Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Ramo Rajamani Sada Vijayate Ramam Ramesham Bhaje Ramena Bihata Nishacharajamu Ramaya Tasmai Namaha. Raman Nasti Parayanam Parataram Ramasya Dasosmyaham. Rame Chittalaya Sada Bhavatu me Bho Rama Muddhara. Samasta Jana Kalyani Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidwaram Sadgurum Brahma Vidwaram. Krishna Krishna Mukunda Janardhana Krishna Krishna Mukunda Janardhana Krishna Govinda Narayana Hare Krishna Govinda Narayana Hare Krishna Krishna Mukunda Janardhana Krishna Krishna Mukunda Janardhana Krishna Govinda Narayana Hare Krishna Govinda Narayana Hare Achyutananda Govinda Madhava Achyutananda Govinda Madhava Sachidananda Narayana Hare Sachidananda Narayana Hare Krishna Krishna Mukunda Janardhana Krishna Krishna Mukunda Janardhana Krishna Govinda Narayana Hare Krishna Govinda Narayana Hare Krishna Govinda Narayana Hare. बोलिए श्री कृष्ण चंद्र भगवान की जय, श्री सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय. Hari Om everyone. We will chant the first verse of Sadhana Panchakam. I hope everybody has the book, soft copy or the hard copy, or somewhere you have the verse written. We can chant it together. Vedo nityamadhiyatam taduditam karma swanushtiyatam tene shasya vidhiyatam apachitihi kamye matistyajyatam papau ghaf paridhuyatam bhavasukhe dosho nusandhiyatam atmecha vyavasiyatam Nijagruhat turnam vinirgam yatam. So we have been seeing various sadhanas given by Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji to purify our mind and quieten our mind, and also make it more subtler so that we progress further on our spiritual journey. The first thing we discussed was about what is sadhana in general. Today we will think about, just before we begin, who is a sadhaka. So we saw sadhana is something which is the means, right? Which is going to get me something that I want. We took the example of, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was if I want to go from here to some place, that place is my sadhya. And my sadhana is the instrument or the action of going to that place. Okay, that becomes sadhana. If I'm driving a car, car becomes my instrument, and the process of driving is my sadhana, which will help me reach my goal. I think we also discussed about musician. If I want to become a good musician, then doing that instrument itself will be my sadhana, but the practice of playing that instrument, learning it, and then going further will be my sadhana. Okay? Sadhana means instrument, sadhana means the process. There is an extra a at the last. But in this particular text, the question we should ask is, who is a sadhaka? Simply put, sadhaka is a person who is willing to change. Sadhaka is somebody who has understood that my current way of living is not the best way that I can live my whole life. There is something more that I can seek in life. Person who comes to this conviction, the text Sadhana Panchakam appeals to him right away. So that is something we have to dwell on. Who is a sadhaka? Bhagwan uses the word in Bhagavad Gita, Vyavasayatmika Buddhi. He is a person who has made a firm resolve to change. He is not perfect yet. That is okay. Walking the path, all of us are sadhakas. We are walking the path. We might not be perfect yet, but we have made a resolve to change. That is what counts as one of the most important qualities of a sadhaka. So we had seen how this sadhaka will match previous understandings to new understandings, which is getting from texts like Sadhana Panchakam, and make sure that these understandings become our own understanding. That is where we grow. So Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji gave the first sadhana, which was Vedo Nityam Adhiyatam. One should do Vedic chanting every day, study the Vedas every day if possible, literature which talks about similar theme as Vedas. Literature meaning other scriptural texts like Bhagavad Gita, Tulsi Ramayanam, Valmiki Ramayanam, Bhagavatam. It is not the quantity, but that inspiration we get from reading one shloka, one verse from these texts. And you would have noticed it for yourself. Sometimes even when you are flipping a book, right, Bhagavad Gita or some other text, you will come across one chaupai, one shloka, which you feel, this is what I was looking for. That is the purpose of Vedo Nityam Adhiyatam. May they become the vision of our life, those ideas which are mentioned in those texts. Then we saw in the Vedas, there is something called as karma portion of Vedas, karma kanda. Our Swami used to call it desire management program. Desires are natural to us. Vedas come and say there is a dharmic way of fulfilling those desires. And it's very natural for humans to have those desires. But rather than doing anything and everything to fulfill those desires, Vedas say there's a systematic way that you can adopt to fulfill the desires. So in these, we saw different types of karmas that are there. Nitya karma, Naimittika karma, and so on. I won't recap all of that. But the most important point there was Nitya Naimittika karma means regular, doing our own sadhana. That will help us purify the mind. This mind which was so much caught up in our own likes and dislikes, Nitya Naimittika karma will help us get released from that clutch of our own tendencies. Okay. So even if I don't like doing that, I make it a point that I will sit down and do it. Doesn't matter if I don't know the meaning of that shloka, things like that. Later on, meaning itself will come. First step is to make sure that I do it no matter what happens. So that was taduditam karma swanushtiyatam. Do it very well. And we also saw the understanding of this particular phrase in the actions that we do in our daily life also. In the world also when we act, keeping that spirit of doing things well. Okay, that is taduditam karma swanushtiyatam. Do it very well. Now what happens is, this sadhaka is no longer tamasic. He is not subscribed to inaction. He is not just sitting in one place and not wanting to do anything. He is inspired now. He is doing his actions, doing things in the world with desire, with attention on himself, on the sadhaka. And through satsang, he realizes something interesting. He starts thinking, I'm doing all these actions all right, but there is so much stress involved. Because attention is always on myself, there is so much uncertainty here. Some things I might get, some things I might not get also. So that uncertainty becomes a cause of stress. And he realizes that these vasanas which are there are getting stronger and stronger. I thought that doing some action to fulfill some desire is going to give me happiness. There was a spark of happiness or pleasure, but later it went away. And it left me with this lingering taste, which is prompting me now to go out and do more of those actions. And also he realizes this perfection, what he is talking about, or what previous instruction talked about, is also becoming a factor of bondage. Doing actions very well is good, but he starts becoming a perfectionist. I'd read something about a perfectionist. He is somebody who says, as long as you do the things exactly the way I want, I'm completely flexible. This person is a perfectionist. So that also starts becoming a source of stress for this person. Then satsang happens. Satsang is consistently going on. Otherwise, these shifts of a sadhaka would never happen. Okay, so first he is gone from inaction to doing action. Okay, karma. Now comes the transition from karma to karma yogi. That is that third verse, third instruction, which says, Teneshasya vidhiyatam apachitihi. Without dropping the actions, same actions are going on. He realizes, if I'm doing these actions, result will come on their own. I don't have to worry too much about the result. Let me shift my attention from karma phala to karma phala data. Who is sending these results? He said, Bhagwan is the one who is making sure that all results of your action are coming to you. Towards that Bhagwan, now you offer the same karmas. Do Bhagwan's puja by offering those karmas as flowers at his feet. Look at the poetic beauty, Tena ishasya vidhiyatam. Tena karmas. The karmas you offer to Bhagwan. Apachitihi. Do puja of Bhagwan by offering these as flowers. This shift, right, from being a karmi to a karma yogi is shown very, very beautifully in the story of Daksha Prajapati. Swamiji also spoke about it in the sessions, in the evenings, in the last week. Daksha Prajapati, the name Daksha itself means one who is a perfectionist. Daksha means who is very skilled in the world outside, very good in doing things, which is a good skill to have, but that if it is devoid of Bhagwan, if it increases this ego again, that I am the most skillful person, that is where a problem comes. So it is said Daksha once got promoted to become Prajapati. He's like, if you have a council of ministers, he is the cabinet minister, the head of that council. So he got elevated, And one of the things in those days was they used to organize a yajna. Whenever there was a celebration, they used to not have a party. Instead of a party, they used to do a yajna. So Daksha organizes such a yajna, and different deva devatas come there in that yajna. And Daksha is a little late, just because he is the main person, right? He cannot come in the beginning. He is the Prabhu of that Nataka Deepa, the main person. So he comes a little late into the yajna. Everybody stands up when Daksha comes in, except for Bhagwan Shiva and Brahmaji. Now Brahmaji is his own father. He doesn't mind that Bhagwan has not stood up. Bhagwan meaning Brahmaji has not stood up. But he gets very upset because Bhagwan, Lord Shiva did not stand up. And he goes on justifying that, how will Lord Shiva, who is, he will break all the traditions and so many things he goes on justify his own ego that he has about being the most skillful person. And later the story goes, there is a commotion that happens there, and ultimately Bhagwan Shiva ends up, making that Veerabhadra Rakshasa who comes and destroys Daksha. Daksha is symbolic of that ahankara. Means karma, if very well done, if it is devoid of devotion to Bhagwan, then that karma has not fulfilled its purpose. In Bhagavatam, there is a beautiful phrase which took some time to understand, and even now we are understanding what it means. Na utpadyate ratim pumsam shrama evahi kevalam. A work which is done, if it doesn't increase devotion to Bhagwan, put it in simple words, if it doesn't make us a sweeter person, okay? If it doesn't make us a sweeter person, that work is only shrama. It's an exhaustion. We have spent a lot of things, lot of energy, but we haven't gained the full potency of what that karma could provide us. It could have provided us love for Bhagwan, made us go further on this journey. We got stuck somewhere because of some reason. In Bhajagovindam, Shankaracharya says a beautiful thing. He says, Dinaya minyo sayam pratah shishira vasanto punarayata. I was thinking about that phrase recently, and this thought came to mind. Every day, so many karmas we do. And if we have not put forth effort to shift our attention from being a karmi to a karma yogi, our life will keep going on in that way. Dinaya minyo sayam pratah. Day will come, night will go, seasons will change, means years will pass on. But what opportunity I had, to purify myself, that opportunity was lost. So this is that tene shasya vidhiyatam apachitihi. Let us make sure that our karmas are offered at the feet of Bhagwan. And then we saw, what does this exactly mean in simple words? Even in day-to-day life, we are familiar with this phrase of offering something to somebody. Those who write a book, right? The first page, if you see what is written there, this book is dedicated to my mother, my family, children, whatever that is. Even those who write research thesis, okay, the first page is always dedications. And that's the most, best part to read. How many things have gone in making this thesis possible? What is the idea there? Even though I might be talking about a very complex mathematical equation, which nobody can understand except me, okay? That might be the case, but yet the spirit of this work is dedicated to this person. That is what this says. Karma Yoga, it doesn't mean, that is why the word tena is beautiful. We have not changed any action. Karma Yoga is not doing any new action, right? Same things which I was doing, Nitya Naimittika Karma, those karmas, it is said, just offer it to Bhagwan. And having this thought, this we discussed in the last time, will Bhagwan or is Bhagwan pleased with me? Okay, is Bhagwan pleased with my action? If this thought comes in my mind, that itself means I have started thinking about offering these actions to Bhagwan. And how will we know whether Bhagwan is pleased or not? Just as Bhagwan enjoyed or Bhagwan loved those who followed Dharma in his manifest avatara, right? When he was Bhagwan Krishna, Bhagwan Rama. In the same way, the Antaryami Bhagwan who is there in us, that Bhagwan loves when we have dharmic thoughts, good thoughts. When we are straightforward in our interactions, actions, Bhagwan says, those are the qualities I love. And Bhagwan has given us a self-regulating mechanism as though, it is called as conscience. This also we discussed last time. In Mahabharata, this point is very beautifully elaborated. When Duryodhana comes to Dhritarashtra and feeds in his ears why Pandava should be sent to the forest. Okay. And of course, that game of dice, everything happens. But last, Dhritarashtra ends up, saying that now you all have to go to the forest. At the back of his mind, he knows this very well, that he has not done the right thing. And it is said in Mahabharata, he had sleepless nights. He could just not, come to terms with himself that he has done such a thing to Pandavas who are so noble people. This is when he calls Vidurji. And Vidurji gives him the right advice. He doesn't listen to it, that's another point. But the main point is that there is a voice in us which says, this is the right thing to do. And I'd heard a beautiful thing from our Swamiji. Whenever we say, Siyavara Ramachandra ki Jai, Sadgurunath Maharaj ki Jai, so that Jai Jaikar is for this purpose. That, oh Lord, in me there are these two sides. One vritti which is manmukhi, what wants to keep doing things that I want. And another things are, or another type of thought is that which is the right thing to do. That which is rooted in values. So whenever we say Siyavara Ramachandra ki Jai, that Jai Jaikar is for Bhagwan, may you win in my heart. Okay, that is the purpose of this. And sometimes we tell children, right, that we can never deceive Bhagwan. We can never deceive Bhagwan. And we also tell them Bhagwan is always watching us. You must have heard that famous joke where a child, there were two baskets of apples kept. And on one basket it was written, take only one, God is watching. And these children were coming in a line to take an apple and go. So this child took one apple and went to the next basket where apples were kept, but there was no sign. And he took 3 or 4 of them. And he wrote a sign there saying that, take as many as you want, God is watching the other basket. So this is something we tell children, right? That Bhagwan is watching us. As we mature in our sadhana, this should become a matter of fact. Bhagwan, who is Antaryami, is direct drashta of all vrittis. All thoughts are first known to Antaryami. So much so that even those thoughts which are not manifest yet, avyakta, that is also known to Bhagwan. That is why the prayer is, Tanme manaha Shiva sankalpamastu. O Lord, may you prompt only the auspicious thoughts in our mind. Okay, so this is that portion where Tene shasya vidhiyatam apachiti means making sure that we always have this thought at the back of our mind. Bhagwan, may you be pleased with what am I doing? And he will bless us with a clear conscience, which itself is joy-giving. It's a great state of mind if you can have a clear conscience. Now, we had seen that this identity of a sadhaka, right, who is walking this path, who has become from karmi to karma yogi, is not a temporary identity. It is not only for certain time of the day. He is able to be in this identity throughout. No matter what action he is doing outside, this identity is always at the back of the mind, and his personality itself becomes that of a sadhaka. Example given here was also beautiful, that flower, worshipping Bhagwan, we do it with flowers, right? So the personality of this person becomes one who is very enthusiastic. Just like when you see a flower, you feel, because of the color, you feel very enthusiastic looking at the flower. And this quality, right, of being enthusiastic and also making sure we make others enthusiastic, that is a great quality of a sadhaka. Our Puja Gurudev, one of his name is Om Utsaha Vardhakaya Namaha. Recently, I was reading one incident. It is said one youngster came to Gurudev and he wanted to get his name in the Guinness Book of Records. And you know how it is, right? You do anything and everything to get your name there. And this youngster was very, very enthusiastic. So there was a youth camp going on and he was also participating in that youth camp. One day Gurudev was sitting and this youngster came and showed Gurudev what he wants to do to get into Guinness Book of Records. And his feat was to multiply numbers. Looks like a very strange thing, but that is what he wanted. Keep on multiplying numbers and numbers and numbers, such that he gets into that record. Now Gurudev knew if some youngster is trying hard to go further in life, enthusiasm should be maintained. But at the same time, he should go in the right direction. Right? You cannot just let him go anywhere. So Gurudev was a master in these responses. He took the book that he was trying to show with all these multiplications, right? And he signed it saying, "May you multiply the goodness within you." Only that much he wrote. And that person, that boy, realized where he was going. This is that utsaha. So Mahatmas who are siddha, for them this is not a sadhana. This is an expression of their knowledge. But for all of us, this is a sadhana. That if somebody wants to do something, we should be enthusiastic and also help them sustain that enthusiasm and guide them in the right direction, especially with children and with youth. So much energy is there, we cannot just let that go also in whichever direction they want to go, but at the same time, not suppressing that enthusiasm. Okay, this was that first example. Second, we saw the tenderness of a flower, how tender it is. Again, in Gurudev's life, there one devotee writes, in one of the experience she had with Gurudev. Early morning, she used to go to Gurudev to, give whatever Gurudev needed and take care of some of Gurudev's correspondence work. And also at night, before Gurudev retired, she would just make sure that he has everything for the night. And it is said, Gurudev would wait and tell her to turn around and go back. The reason was he did not want to close the door on the face. This is the tenderness. Interactions being so sensitive about them that maybe never hurt anybody at any level. Okay? That is something we get to learn from Mahatmas. And what to talk about, the last one, we saw that flower is fragrant. Right? That selflessness which is there, that is the fragrance of personality of this sadhaka. I was reading another incident when people used to go to Gurudev and ask those who studied in Sandipani Sadhanalaya, that last time when the graduation ceremony was there, Gurudev would come and give Diksha. So one student asked Gurudev, "Gurudev, you have given us so much. We studied here for 2 years. Traditionally, it was students who should go and get Diksha, but now you went and took care of all of us. What is that thing that we can do to express our gratitude to you?" Gurudev said, "Smile when we meet. That is enough." This is that selflessness. So they were at a very different level of expressing these qualities. Tene shasya vidhiyatam. But for us, that becomes as our sadhana. Whatever little we can do, that person is called a sadhaka. Now, Shankaracharya ji said, Tena ishasya vidhiyatam, which is okay. But somebody might say, I don't even know completely the nature of Bhagwan. You said, all right, worship or offer these karmas to Bhagwan. What is the nature of Bhagwan? So it is said, all of that will become clear. Whatever your understanding is right now, start with that. If you think Bhagwan is one form who is in my puja room, if you think Bhagwan is my friend, always there with me, to that Bhagwan you offer these karmas. Okay, we don't have to worry too much about nature of Bhagwan. Bhagwan says, I will reveal it to you. Don't worry. Systematically, everything will come. Attend satsang. That is where Ramayanam is needed. Going to house of Bhagwan and knowing what is his nature. Saguna Rupa and Nirguna Rupa both will come. Okay. Now, practical benefit, right? If we understand that all these resources which I'm using for my work, they all belong to Bhagwan, I will become very mindful while using those resources. At the same time, I won't get attached to it. Your office laptop that you have, right? Although we use it for work, we never get attached to it. Anything that we've gotten from office, we know that this is something that has come in time and it belongs to somebody else. I can use it, I can accomplish my work through it, but I won't get attached to it. So in the same way, if we understand all resources that come in our life, people, materials, everything fundamentally, the owner is only one, then it will be a very, stress-free and appropriate contact we will have with that object and also different resources. So this is another nice point of Tene shasya vidhiyatam apachitihi. And sometimes you hear this phrase, work is worship. Work is worship. Our Guruji always asks, worship is okay, but worship of whom? Okay, worship should always be of somebody. The point I'm trying to make here is, without having Bhagwan, Karma Yoga has not fulfilled its purpose. Okay, we can never say, I am a Karma Yogi, but I don't believe in Bhagwan. I don't, know what is his role in these karmas. If that is the case, then I'm still in the category of karmi, which is good, which is a good stage. But if somebody says I've graduated onto a karma yogi, it has to be with Bhagwan. We think of it the other way. What is the main thing in karma yoga? We say prasada buddhi, right? Whatever results come to me out of my actions, in that I have prasada buddhi. Just like how we go to a temple and take prasad, we don't say, oh, what is this? Why only payasam today? Why only puffed rice? Nothing like that. We just go and take whatever is given to us. In the same way, when situations come in our life, those situations, we accept it as Bhagwan's prasad. Now the question is, if we don't have Bhagwan in the equation and we say we are a karma yogi, so prasada is coming from whom? Right? So unless there is somebody higher, we cannot say I'm taking prasad, in my life. Another aspect of karma yoga is we become an instrument while doing that action, right? Karana while doing action. So if we say I am not karta, I am karana, karana in whose hands? Right? Karana also, there has to be somebody who is holding my hand. So the point is, see, we are trying to shift our attention from the world to Bhagwan. And if we don't hold on to Bhagwan, we will hold on to world again. Sometimes we say, or many people say, I don't believe in Bhagwan. but they believe in some other source. Either it is power, either it is wealth. So they have made that as Bhagavan. So that is why it is said, Karma Yoga, when it comes, we should be very clear. The path will be very thorough, and there will be no confusion in the later text. Because remember, our goal is not to get stuck in sadhana number 3. I also realize that we are in sadhana number 3 out of 40 sadhanas, right? So if we have to progress further, Bhagwan will be the one who is holding our hands to move further on this journey. And Arjuna also, if you see his story, right, this is how it begins. He thought that he is fighting war for dharma. Bhagwan says that altar is great, but make sure that you offer that altar also unto me. Don't do this action at this altar devoid of that spirit of offering unto me. So in Gita also, Bhagwan says, Mai sarvani karmani sanyasya. To me you offer all karmas. Adhyatma chetasa, and so on. He will give other guidance. Okay. So with this way, when sadhaka realizes that I'm doing all the karmas very good, but there is a better way to do it, and shifting my attention to Bhagavan, what happens is the next one, kamye matistyajjata, means the importance that is given to kamya karma, desire prompted action, that starts getting weakened. It is a sadhana. Bhagavan says one should give up importance in those actions which are prompted by desires. So kamya karma, if you want to understand it in simple words, they are actions which I do with this intention of gaining happiness. I need not do them. Even if I don't do them, it is okay. But yet I end up doing them because I feel they will give me happiness. Those are kamya karmas. Okay. So Bhagwan says here, drop fascination for those actions. Okay, kamya matihi tyajyatam. And it will happen naturally. If somebody does nitya karma, naimittika karma very well and becomes karma yogi, interest in kamya karma will automatically start getting reduced. Why? Because he has started gaining or seeing happiness in these regular duties also. In my day-to-day work, I start finding a new purpose to life. Previously, what looked like a chore, with this shift in attitude, I'm able to see that, same action can have new meaning. It has deeper meaning to it. So that is how this fascination for kamya karma, that will go down. Okay, kamye matihi tyajyatam. And this question was raised in the last satsang, that if we let go of all kamya karma, life will become boring. Okay, so we had seen it in the last session that we can let go of something only when we have found something else to hold on to. So if my day-to-day routine becomes more purposeful, if I'm able to enjoy my work more and more, then I'll be able to say this kamya karma also I can keep it away. But there's a small thing to think about here. We should analyze this in our own life. Within kamya karma, there will be gradation. Drinking a cup of coffee is also kamya karma. Binge watching late night, that is also kamya karma. Netflix or some show, both are kamya karmas. But one proves to be more of an obstacle towards my goal than the other. So we should know which kamya karmas are critical to be, let gone of. Some things might be there which are less harmful. They are also harmful. If we start discussing that, we will not go anywhere. I hope you are getting the point that I'm trying to say. The goal that we have in life, kamya karmas will be obstacles to those goals. If I have a deadline tomorrow morning and my kamya karma says I have to watch this show late night, that Kamya Karma will become an obstacle. So in this way, when we start shifting our source of happiness, okay, now, previously what had happened was, oh my God, again that project I have to do, again that work I have to do in the morning. I never saw joy in it. But now this Karma Yogi is seeing joy even in that work. He wants to do it as beautifully as possible. And he sees that this itself is an offering to Bhagwan. Now that joy will help him overcome this other Kamya Karma. So this we have to see in our life. What all things are proving to be obstacles? Those on the spiritual path, when you sit down for meditation, mind goes everywhere, right? One sadhana is to look at where exactly mind is going. Which areas have I given too much importance such that mind is just getting pulled in that direction? Okay, so that way, Kamya Karma will be overcome. Okay, so these points we had seen in the last class also. So in this way, when pressure of Kamya Karma is reduced, I will realize I'm able to accomplish more things in life. The goals that I had set for myself, I feel more competent in accomplishing those goals. Previously, they were just goals. New Year resolution list was long, but the day or the week after, everything fizzled out. The reason is this. Kamya Karma was very predominant. It was pushing me to go where they want. Now I will realize that this pressure is getting reduced. And what I have to do in life, what goals I have in life, those towards that I'm able to move. So in this way, when we do, it is said, next instruction, Papaugav Paridhuyatam. One will get cleansed of all negativities which are there in us. It's a great promise of our Vedantic scriptures. Bhakti Shastra in particular, it says, never look down upon yourself. Once you have started walking this path, Bhagwan says, I give you my assurance that you'll be cleansed of all the negativities that you had before. This is beautifully demonstrated when Vibhishanji decides to come to Bhagwan Ramchandraji, the Sharanagati portion. So Bhagwan asks everybody. He says, what is your opinion? Should we have Vibhishana in our camp or not? And Sugriva, being a very astute minister, in politics, he says, no, Bhagwan, we don't know what is his background. We don't know how many, and he's coming from a Rakshasa party. He's doing so many, we don't know what he will do to our camp here. Bhagwan says a very beautiful line, which we should, keep it in our mind all the time. He says, Sanamukha hoi jiva mohi jabahi. When this jiva becomes sanmukha, when he turns towards me, janma koti agha nasahi tabahi. Janma koti, whatever sins are accrued from the past, all of that, agha, you see the word papaugha, means a flood of negativities which are there, they get washed away. Janma koti agha nasahi tabahi. Sanmukha hoi jiva jabahi. Jiva mohi jabahi. When Bhagwan says, when this jiva becomes turned towards me, all the papas which are there from the past, they will get cleansed. How they will get cleansed? By walking this path of sadhana. All these things are for that purpose only. That sadhaka will now start offering karmas to Bhagwan. And in that way, this flood of different negativities which are there, they will start getting cleansed. And we should understand, Gurudev, used to very beautifully put this point. He used to say, when challenging situations come in life, it means Bhagwan is cleansing us of some kind of karmas from the past. He used to give example of mother bathing a child. When this child is playing in the mud and he has, covered himself fully with mud and he comes inside the house. Now mother wants this child to be purified. Okay, so what she will do, first scold him, take him in the shower and then give a very, warm water bath. And all through that, this child is crying because he first of all doesn't want that warm water bath. And he feels that he's good. Wherever he is there, he's very good, very happy there. He feels, what is she doing? She's giving me so much trouble. And on top of that, she starts wiping him with that, towel. I don't know what it's called. We call it Turkish towel, which has the fur and everything. And it's not very soft. The ones that we use sometimes are quite rough, but it absorbs the water very well. So Gurudev is to say, whenever we go through challenges in life, understand Bhagwan is very well taking care of us. He wants us to grow in life. Become like that child who after everything, after that ceremony is done, mother will nicely put powder and that small tika she will put on that child. And now he is ready to go out and play again. Again, he will get dirty. That's another thing. Would stop the example here only. So this is that portion, Papaugav Paridhuyatam. This is a promise given by Bhagavan, promise given by Shastra. Once we start walking as a sadhaka, sincerely, we will start seeing this result. Okay. Papaugav Paridhuyatam. Paridhuyatam, it's like this dhobi washing clothes. How he takes that cloth and hits on that rock. And in that process, whatever dirt is there in that cloth, that goes away. Our modern example is Swamiji used to say this, last spinning cycle in the washing machine that you have. Nothing else to see. It just needs to get rid of all the water to spin at a very, very fast speed. So that is this sadhana, where while going through challenges, we are always keeping in our mind, what am I getting through this? How am I growing through this? Rather than complaining or finding fault with Bhagwan, we look at it the other way and say, he has given me that which I have the strength to bear. He will never make any mistakes in sending karma phala, right? So he wants that extra level. All right, we'll pause here. Teneshasya vidhiyatam apachitihi kamye matistajyatam papaughav paridhuyatam. And we'll see some questions which were submitted in the last session. So this question is regarding what I said about perfection. It says, I have sought to do this, means perfection, but I find that there is a scope for a lot of ego and doership to sneak into that effort. Even with the thought of dedicating action to a higher altar, there is a risk of perfectionism, which is again egoistic. In the pursuit of excellence, my frail ego gets mixed up. Very true. If we think that I'm going to be perfect in whatever I do, this ego will stand up. And by the way, this fact is true for any virtue that you pick. Even if you pick, for example, honesty, right? The moment we start feeling I'm a very honest person, that is where ego has stood up. So like this, you can take different virtues. We will realize that if we start practicing that particular virtue, it itself becomes an obstacle. So there is one way to understand these, but at the same time, we cannot let go of those virtues also. We cannot say, let me be whatever I want. So what is the way out? Way out is try to understand that virtue from the flip side. So perfection means not being inadvertent. If that becomes our goal, then this ego won't bother us too much. We'll become mindful of things that we do more. And this you can apply to all virtues. If that virtue by itself is difficult to understand, and take the flip side of it. That will give a lot of clarity on how to practice that virtue. Otherwise, that virtue itself becomes another thing that we hold on to, and that becomes a source of this ahankara. But one thing about perfectionism is trying to do it more ourselves rather than expecting it from others. Okay. So if we have that expectation that everything has to be the way I want, that will be another source of sorrow only for us. So like that, we can look at that. But for example, somebody might say, if we are in a role that needs us to educate somebody, then we should do that also. Okay, what I mean by that is, let us say there is a parent. Now the child is there. It is a parent's duty to educate the child about these virtues, and also to expect the child to, abide by these virtues. First of all, practicing that virtue ourselves. That is the first thing. And the second would be to make sure that even the child is able to do it. So that portion is what we had seen there. And in Mahatmas, when we see, it's a totally different expression. Like for Gurudev, when we see, right, he was such a perfectionist in whatever he did. And it was Gurudev's, I wouldn't say duty, but also his compassion that he would guide his students to do it. Making sure that everything is neat and clean. He would know exactly where to go and find, the dust. You might have cleaned the top, but under the table, there will be a streak. Or Ishwarananji used to share this with us. He said once Gurudev came to Sandipani when they were studying, 1992 or something, 1991. And in front of our Jagdishwara temple, there is a big brass lamp. And he saw that it was all black, or there were spots of black. And it's a huge lamp. It is not something you can just go and clean. So he said, unless you clean this, to all the brahmacharis he said, unless you clean this, no lunch today. And they started, cleaning and shining it and so many things, that whole lamp. But later on, they realized Gurudev also had not eaten that day. Because it was his instruction to them, and he was, sugar, diabetes patient. That was his love, along with disciplining, along with making sure that perfectionism is there. There is a lot of love while educating other people. All right. Okay, next question is, how do I strengthen the bhava necessary for karma yoga? So what I understand from this question is, we understand that karma yoga is good, but we are not able to practice it to the fullest extent, right? So what is helpful here is taking a certain project or a time or a cause where we say, I'm going to serve here without expecting anything for myself. I'm going to say, what can I give? And I will never ask, at least for this particular cause, this particular time, what am I getting? So that is one, dedicated time that we can do this karma yoga practice. And also try to say that I will work together with people and help accomplish the goal together. Either it is somebody else's idea, somebody else's work, or the main goal that we are working towards, I will be a part of accomplishing that goal. Even if I might, have other ideas, opinions, I will make sure I'm going in that direction. And if it comes to sacrificing personal comfort, this sadhaka will say, write my name. Okay, if you need something which requires sacrifice from my side, of my own routine or something, let me, I will be a part of it. And when a sadhaka does actions in this way, one should notice the nature of mind. You will realize it's much more free, it is much more happier. This happiness which is there, that will strengthen the bhava. It is, something we should experience and see. Then I'll be able to extrapolate this attitude even in my day-to-day life. There also I can say, even if I have my duties, actions and everything, if I have this attitude, I'll be able to do karma yoga and also be happy in that environment. Okay. All right. The next question is, what karmas to offer to Bhagwan in everyday life? Are they worthy to be offered? This instruction said, Tene shasya vidhiyatam, offer everything to Bhagwan. This is true. When we start doing, even when we do puja, we don't offer everything, anything and everything to Bhagwan, right? Even flowers, it is said, we should offer those that are fragrant flowers. So like this, even Naivedyam, when we do, we take so much care that it is clean and so on. In the same way, when we do our karma also, first thing what we will keep aside is Nishiddha karma. If this thought comes that I should offer everything to Bhagwan, first karma to drop will be Nishiddha karma. So that adharmic portion of karmas that we spoke about, right? That my own mind will say, no, because Bhagwan has come in my life, these karmas I cannot do anymore. And if you ask Bhagwan, what kind of karma do you want? Is it okay if I offer everything? Bhagwan himself says in Gita, Yad karoshi, yad ashnasi, yad juhosi dadati yat. Means whatever you are doing, whatever you are, in your day-to-day actions, whatever you are doing, Bhagwan says, offer all of that to me. If that is his words, then we should have, in that conviction, we can go in that direction. That everything that we do, first thing to drop will be Nishiddha karma. And other things, whatever we are doing, we can offer it to Bhagwan. He says, please do offer it. I'm waiting for that. And our Hindu culture is so beautiful. We say, Utsava Priyaha Manusya. Human beings like to celebrate. We like to cook food. We like to decorate. We like to dance. And everything. Okay. But look how beautifully our rishis have thought about it. They said this thing is there in sadhakas, this tendency is there in people. We can do all of that, keeping Bhagwan in the center. So whichever festivals we have, all of these things are there, right? We like to dress up, which is a good thing. But it is said, dress up for Bhagwan, not for anybody else. If that thought comes, then it is a great step in our sadhana. It will purify our mind. So that is, I hope this question, you get a perspective. And all actions, yes, definitely yes. Bhagwan says, day-to-day, anything that you do, driving kids to school, doing your day-to-day work, chopping vegetables, everything, he says, offer it to me. That is my prasada. That is your yajna. I will give it back to you as prasada. That is what I mean. Okay, last question, and then we'll pause here. You give your love to your kith and kin. What if they reject it? Can you keep pouring on this love? You give your love to your kith and kin. What if they reject it? Can you keep pouring on this love? First, we should understand there are few things. We are independent in giving, but not in getting. What are those things? One is this love. We can give independently, but what we get from the world is not independent. Care is another thing which is, we can give independently. Getting back doesn't depend on us. Cooperation, concern, all these qualities which are there, we have a lot of freedom in giving. If I am cooperative with others, doesn't necessarily mean everybody will cooperate with me. Sadhaka is the one who drops this wrong expectation. If I have this expectation that I am giving love and I should also receive love, it is said that expectation is what will cause a lot of sorrow. Okay, so that is one point. So there are different things I mentioned, right? Love, respect, care, and so on. But if you take only love, right? There is a very beautiful book. I remember reading it long time back, but even now it's very popular. It is called I Love You Letters by Pujya Gurudev. There he writes to children about what is love. And one thought that I remember from that book is, he mentions that love should always be a thing which leads us to freedom And love is not that which binds. Binds, it should not bind the person whom we are loving, and it should also not bind us who are loving. Okay, love that binds is not love. He says true love is that which gives us freedom. Now, one last point. Okay, as a sadhaka, Bhagwan says, whenever you love, you want to love anything in this world, right? Either object or people, put me in between. In between means what? Even when we love our kith and kin, we are loving that Paramatma who resides in them, who is our own self, who is Lord of this universe. However you want to understand. However you have sambandha with Bhagwan, we can understand that Bhagwan only I am loving through this person. It's a great stage of maturity in love where the expectation does not become in receiving anymore. Whether we receive or not, we know that Bhagwan is loving me. Okay, so that is one way to look at this. Should we keep pouring on love? Yes, but not with that expectation. With some maturity that this love which I am giving is to this Paramatma, is to this Bhagwan, my own baby Krishna whom I love so much, who is playing in the heart of this person. That will help a sadhaka go further, mature in love, and also not make this love as something which is a source of bondage. Okay, so we will pause here. I see that there is another question which we will take it in the next session. Okay, so if you have any other questions, thank you so much for sharing all of that. We also get this. This is the only way I can get feedback, huh? Because I don't see any of you. So I'm just saying whatever things I've understood from my teachers. So when I hear these questions, it helps me also reflect and connect more with all of you. There is a Google Doc which has been created, or a Google form. If you go to our website, in the class section, there is a form. You can submit there also. And these questions also I am keeping a track of. Okay. Hari Om. We'll chant the concluding prayer. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Hari Om. Hari Om.